Hare Krishna, welcome everybody to this live broadcast on ISKCON Crawley, our Sunday Feast program. And thank you all for inviting me to this, to speak about mind, body, and soul. So let us start with the prayers, and then we will start with this talk. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, welcome everyone to this Sunday Feast talk on ISKCON Crawley page, and we are just having a wonderful topic today. That is the understanding the connection between mind, body, and soul. I just want to check something out with the make sure that the transmission is going okay on the page, and then we will begin our class. So this is a very deep topic, and I really want to focus on something which is very, very beneficial for all of you. So the talk will be centered, and I welcome any questions, any comments during, and if it is within the topic range, then I will discuss right there. Or if it is a little off topic, then I will answer your questions in the end. Okay, so looks like the live transmission is going okay. Just wanted to check on my computer. Okay, so the topic is mind, body, soul. So how are they connected? Now let's try to understand the properties of the soul. What is the nature of the soul? So the nature of the soul is to be blissful. To be blissful. And it has three qualities. Sat, it's eternal. Chit, that it's full of knowledge. And Ananda means it's full of bliss. So, Satchidananda, the soul is completely full of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Now, what are the qualities of the body? The qualities of the body are that it is temporary, it is ignorant, and it is not blissful. Our body is not blissful. The soul is blissful. So the nature of the soul is to be blissful. So what is that? What are the three things? Eternity, knowledge, and bliss. And what are the properties of the body? It's temporary, it's ignorant, and it's full of pain. So if we understand these two qualities that the soul has and the body has, so what we are trying to do by the practice of yoga or practice of Krishna consciousness is to realize this true nature of the soul. Let the true nature of the soul manifest. We want to let the nature of the soul manifest. We sing in Guru Puja, Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashito, Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashito, Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite, Avidya Vinasha Jate, Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite, Avidya Vinasha Jate, Vedegay Jahara Charito. So, basically, when we develop prema bhakti, loving devotion to Krishna, so when we develop prema bhakti, avidya vinasha jate. What is this avidya? So that is the goal. That is something that needs to be removed. So we are coming to the connection. So what is the connection? The soul has this blissful nature. And right now, because of our body, because of the limitations of the body, because of the nature of the body, this true nature of the soul is not manifest. Although we want to love every person, we want to love every animal, we want to love every plant, we want to, be merciful, caring, loving to every living entity in the universe. But are we able to get those feelings right now? Are we able to cultivate those feelings right now? So in order to cultivate those feelings, that's when we practice Krishna consciousness. What happens is there is a melting of the heart. But how is that? So that's a discipline. So by doing so, eventually one cultivates the practice of yoga or bhakti yoga that we are practicing, and ultimately we reach the level of prema. And what happens? Then you gain prema bhakti. But when the soul falls down from the material world to the material world, it is said that the soul gains what is called as avidya. Avidya means he forgets his spiritual nature. So that's the nature of the soul. So to forget his true nature is called as avidya. So when we sing this song, Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite, Avidya Vinasha Jate, so literally you have conquered that very cause that let you down. So when the soul comes down to this material world, he is overcome by avidya. Means he does not realize who he is. It's like loss of memory. The soul experiences a loss of memory because it comes in contact with the material nature, and that is called avidya. So this is the first thing that happens to the soul. Avidya. And because of that, what happens? The next step after that is called as asmita. So it's asmita. So this asmita or ego or material ego. So first you develop avidya and then you develop ego. Then what is the next thing? Raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. Then the soul cultivates attachment, aversion, and a fear for existence. The soul cultivates the fear of existence. We all are fearful. Whether we will, how long will we live, right? We are all fearful. How long will this pandemic last? How much money I am going to make this year? How will I, how am I going to make a living? And we are all in various anxieties in our life. We are in various types of anxieties. And because of these various types of anxieties, so that is a secondary result of what is the primary cause of our problems. So what is the primary cause of our problems? That is avidya. So avidya is the forgetfulness of our real nature. So the forgetfulness of our real nature, that is avidya. And we really need to overcome that avidya, which in turn leads to ego, attachment, aversion, fear and suffering in this world. So how do you overcome that? That reversal is the process of yoga. Once you have knowledge, so in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains very beautifully. He says, Yuktahara viharasya, yukta chestasya karmasu, yukta swapna avabodhasya, yogo bhavati dukkhaha. So Krishna explains very beautifully. Krishna says, you want to live happy? So what is the first definition of happiness? There are two levels of happiness. The first level of happiness, till the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, is to stop further suffering. That is the first happiness that you get. That I don't want to suffer anymore. So that is why, what does Krishna advise? Yuktahara viharasya, yukta chestasya karmasu, yukta swapna avabodhasya, yogo bhavati dukkhaha. So Krishna explains that you will live a pain-free life if you follow certain principles. And what are those principles? Yuktahara. First is control your diet. Viharasya. Control where you go. Don't go where you can contract coronavirus, right? Today that is the norm. But in general, go where your mind is purified. Where does a yogi go for a trip? He doesn't go to a bar. He goes to a riverside. He goes to a mountain. He goes to some beautiful place and hears the sweet sound of the birds. He hears the sweet flowing of the rivers. Yukta chestasya karmasu. When you do a job, when you work, act in such a way that yukta chestasya karmasu. Work at your job, not really slam, hard work. But one should work intelligently. The Brahmana, the intelligent person, he should work very intelligently. Similarly, a Kshatriya should work very intelligently also. There is a lot of requirement of intelligence. So, even Vaishya, when you do business, and anybody who works with intelligence, he gets the work done efficiently. And that is also yoga. So, Krishna assures that if you follow the principles of yoga, your life will be pain-free. Your life will be peaceful. It will be pain-free. That is the first step. So the discipline is required. So that is why we find in the Upadeshamrita, Rupa Goswami quotes, Vacho vegam manasah krodha vegam. What is the quality of a guru? Vacho vegam manasah krodha vegam. Jihva vegam udarupastha vegam. Yetan veganyo vishaheta dhiraha. Sarvam cha apimam prithvim shashishyat. So one who has control over his tongue, one who has control over his speech, one who has control over his anger. Because it is said anger destroys your brain cells. Anger can really destroy your brain cells. So that is why those who have constant anger, in the later age they develop Parkinson's, amnesia, mental stress related problems. So there is a lot of damage to the brain. Therefore, if we get angry, if we overwork, if we get too stressed, there is a lot of damage to the body. Now, body is an instrument. So remember, why are we disciplining the body? Now, at the beginning of this class, we spoke about the soul has its nature. The soul is blissful. But are we experiencing that bliss right now? Are we experiencing that peace, that inner calmness right now? Ask yourself that question. Are you really experiencing it? Are you really seeing a change in your level of inner peace and happiness? Are you able to relate to people in a loving way? Are you able to relate to people in love, compassion? Are you able to relate to that? So that's the thing. So if we are able to relate to people in such a loving way, that is the state of yoga. That is the true nature of the soul. Now, coming to the point, the soul has this beautiful nature. But what has happened to the soul is covered right now by the mind, and that mind is a direct outcome of avidya. So this body, Srila Prabhupada used to say, for the soul, this body is a disease. In general, we see this body as beautiful, as an object of enjoyment. In Ayurveda, if the body something goes bad, goes imbalanced, so then that is treated as the cause of the disease. But for the bliss of the soul, this body is the disease. Srila Prabhupada was the soul doctor. And he identified, as long as you have the body, that's a problem. But as long as you have the body, Krishna says, Imam prapya bhajasva mam, worship me. Now that you have this body, worship me. But to worship that body, to worship Krishna, you need a sound body. Your body should have a proper capacity to hear the sound of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Your body should have the strength to hear, to chant, to execute all the services given to you. Somebody asks you, go wash pots. You're like, oh no, that's not, I can't do that. I have this health issue. I cannot do this. I cannot do that. I'm not saying that everybody should be able to do everything, but the thing is, Bhaktivinoda Thakur emphasized that if you want to really do good service to Krishna, you need to prioritize health first. Now, health is not just about the body being strong. Health is also about the mind. 2 days ago, I was watching this, I was reading the news, and there was this big bodybuilder, big. And he committed suicide. I was like, wow, he's such a big body. Everybody is fighting to get a strong body. This guy has that body and he ends up committing suicide. I'm like, what? So then there was an article which was talking about mental health. The article was talking about mental health. So the mind. So the mind is the cause of your happiness and your distress. Your body is as good as the health of your mind. And very interestingly, the health of the mind is what decides the health of the body. Now, how is this connected with the soul? Now, remember the point again. The soul is in the region of the heart. The soul is blissful. The soul has a blissful nature. Coming back to the point, this nature needs to be experienced. Right now we are only experiencing material nature, stress, anger, frustration, all these different things. But the soul has its beautiful spiritual nature. And we want to experience that within this body. And as you are, and if you are situated on that platform of the soul, then in the due course of time, you will be liberated. You will be liberated. But for the soul, for us to experience the nature of the soul, the body and mind must be free from disease, must be in a state of Shuddha Sattva, in the mode of pure goodness. If you read the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is explained that Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Vasudeva is the father of Krishna. But Vasudeva is also a state of mind in which you perceive transcendence, in which you perceive the soul, in which you perceive Krishna. So the body has to be in the mode of pure goodness, body and mind. But how is that? So the entire Bhagavad Gita, this verse that we spoke about, Yuktahara viharasya yukta chestasya karmasu yukta swapna avabodhasya yogo bhavati dukkhaha. So basically that is to tell you, this verse is to tell you that this body needs to be liberated from the modes of ignorance and passion. The body needs to come to the mode of goodness first. What happens with that is the soul, the nature of the soul, the blissful nature which is within you, that needs to be expressed, that needs to be perceived, that needs to be understood. So this experience of the soul, of the nature of the soul, if you really want to experience this nature, then the body has to be light. Your focus has to be completely within. We are only aware of so much externals, but our focus should be within. We must always be aware. A yogi is always aware of the self, the soul. Like when I say me, I am seeing the soul. My body is experiencing this. My body is experiencing this. So when somebody insults you, you see, oh, they are relating to my body. A self-realized soul is, oh, they are doing this to my body. But I am not this body. He is able to easily overcome insults. But how is that possible? That is when you are strongly connected with the inner self. So this body-mind connection. Therefore, the system of yoga is meant to purify the layers of existence. The Yoga Sutras also state, and in the 3rd canto, Kapila Muni also states, that the body, the more we are addicted to sinful activities, the more we are focused on certain bad habits. So then what happens? We create a block. We create our own blocks. Nobody can destroy you more than your own mind. Nobody can destroy you more than your own mind. So if you want to be free, then you have to make your mind your best friend. And when do you make your mind your best friend? In the mode of goodness. So when you come to the mode of goodness, when you arrive at the point of goodness, then what symptoms do you experience? Sattvam lagu prakashakam. So when you eat the right foods, when you live a proper lifestyle, then what happens? You become light. Your mind the baggage is gone from the mind. The stress is gone from the mind. All the baggage is gone. So when all the baggage, all the stress is gone, so then your mind is ready to receive something. Imagine your mind is constantly thinking. The mind is also an ethereal space. The mind is an ethereal space. Now this ethereal space, the more you muddle up thoughts in that, constantly thinking on, how will you able to really, it's like a wind. The thoughts in the mind, Arjuna describes it aptly. Arjuna says, Krishna, I cannot control my mind. It's like a swirling wind, he says. So it's like a swirling wind. So this swirl, this wind, we find this windy mind, all the thoughts are getting muddled up. We need to stop the momentum first. So that is the mode, that's what happens in the mode of goodness first. So what is happening when you muddle up thoughts in your mind, in your heart? So it's like the soul is trying to experience this body, this mind, but this swirl of thoughts, identification, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, this is all covering the soul, avidya, it is covering the soul. The soul is not able to see itself. It's just like you are sleeping with your eyes closed and you are seeing a really bad dream. And you are seeing that dream, I'm experiencing so many things. All of a sudden I open my eyes, I'm like, oh, what was that? So that is the situation of the soul right now. He's in that dream. That's all this what we are experiencing right now because of the heaviness in the mind. Because of the we are not in the liberated state. So the mind is engaging you. All these swirling thoughts are engaging you, catching. Maya jhapatiya jare, right? It says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Maya jhapatiya jare. The illusion catches you, bam, very strong. So in the mode of passion and ignorance, there is not even a chance of seeing the truth, being able to see the soul. But in the mode of goodness, lagu prakashakam, what happens? The soul is able to see a semblance of itself. Chaya, like a shadow. The soul begins to experience a little bit of itself. You feel the lightness, lagu prakashakam. You feel the knowledge. You feel the lightness, you feel the knowledge. Slowly this, as the pain goes away, yuktahara viharasya. So that is why we eat right. We eat and proper Ayurvedic diet. So what happens to the food? Food is your medicine, because food is meant to increase the duration of life. Ayushyam tejam arogyam. This is the purpose of food. To increase duration of life, to purify the mind, and to aid bodily strength. So the body and mind begins to become purified. And then what happens when the pain factor is less? You see the world in a totally different perspective. So that is in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Because the purpose of yoga is to keep you healthy physically and mentally and get you ready for the higher truth. Get you ready to realize the higher truth. And what is the higher truth? That is realizing the soul and its relationship with Krishna. So it's already there. The point is the soul already has it. But what is happening is, because of mode of ignorance, passion, even in the mode of goodness, if we have these blocks, what are the blocks? Krishna explains. So we have 6 enemies of our mind. Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsara. But Krishna explains 3 gateways of hell. What is that? Lust, anger, greed. So gradually as you come to the mode of goodness, and how is that possible? What are the different activities that will make it possible? So that is why devotion, loving devotion. So if we engage the body right, first of all, our attitude should be right. So when you practice yoga, when you practice chanting, when you eat prasad, so when you do all this, what is important is the right attitude. Because, for example, even the demons please Krishna, just like Kamsa. Kamsa, he sent a chariot to pick up Krishna. And the chariot went to pick up Krishna. It was a brand new chariot. Krishna loved it. But what was Kamsa's attitude? He wanted to kill Krishna. So it was not out of devotion. So basically when we practice yoga, so when I practice my yoga every day, because of course that's what I do. I teach yoga, I focus on diet, I focus on healing. That's all I do. Because once we are physically and mentally healed, so what do you have to heal from? From your own past karma. Nobody can disturb you more than your own mind. So what is with you in your mind is what you have cultivated for millions of lifetimes. For millions of lifetimes of worth of mental impressions are present in your mind. Until those are cleared off, it's like a tunnel. The soul, the light of the soul is trying to come out through the tunnel of the heart. And you are the warrior. You are the yogic warrior. A yogi is already a warrior. Srila Prabhupada says a yogi is a warrior. A devotee is a warrior. Why is he a warrior? He is fighting. Fighting against what? Material nature is dragging you to the next birth and you are fighting it. What is the fight? Discipline. The yogi's fight is discipline. That's the fight of a yogi. I want to chant. I want to chant steadily. I want to chant focused to please Guru and Krishna. That's my attitude. No matter what it takes. Tranadapi sunichena. But you need a strong body for that. If I am coughing, sneezing, not good health, how am I going to fight? So that's why Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, keep good health. Health, sadhana, service. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, health, sadhana, service. When you have good health, you have good sadhana. When you have good sadhana, you have good service attitude. So that's important. So, the way we practice, so every day we need to do, Prabhupada used to do walking, for example. Prabhupada had diabetes, so many different health things, but he was a transcendental warrior. So he used to do morning walk, even that he used for speaking. So Prabhupada would do mostly walking. So even walking is very good. Why? Because Prabhupada gives a very, very beautiful point about body-mind health. So the subtle soul and the gross body, the subtle soul, the mind and the body, they are all connected by a network of nadis, which the flow of which is controlled by air pressure in the body. And who says this? Prabhupada says this. In the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada says that all the health of the body and mind is dependent on the flow of air within the body. So when you practice walking, when you practice yoga, when you practice exercise, everything, it is just realigning the prana. So what happens? Even your thought is also related to the breathing. When you're angry, you breathe fast. When you're relaxed, you breathe slow. The slower you breathe, you calm down, you are able to think better because it opens up the space. The transmission is much better because of the air. So Srila Prabhupada says you can treat any physical disease and mental disease by air. And this air, this connection, this transmission between the soul, mind and body is what is the result of a good control of prana. So we see Dhruva Maharaj, for example. What did Dhruva Maharaj do? Dhruva Maharaj, in the first month, at the age of 5, remember, at the age of 5, he got Narada Muni's blessings at the age of 5. And he controlled his eating first. If you read that chapter in Bhagavatam, it says he controlled his eating first. And Srila Prabhupada says by controlling eating, one can reduce sleep. One can sleep well, deep, sattvic sleep, and you can, just by control of eating. Many people get protruding belly, which is not a sign of prosperity. So, that is because of heavy eating at night and lack of exercise. And that also builds up vata. So Dhruva Maharaj controlled his eating. And after controlling his eating, then he was able to steady his body and mind. Because when you practice yoga, when you practice bhakti yoga, any form of yoga, first thing, if you do not control the diet, no yoga will have any effect on you. We cannot eat anything and everything and then we say we are practicing yoga. No, yoga practice should be yoga means mode of pure goodness. Yoga means discipline. There are many meanings. Yoga means union. Yoga means art of doing work. So all these things are different meanings of yoga. But one of the main meanings is yoga is discipline. So first thing we have to do is really discipline our body and our mind. And by controlling by disciplining the body and mind in a very, very nice way, we will find that the body and the mind, they become very conducive. The mind has two tendencies. One is called Sarvagra. Sarvagra means the mind thinks of so many things. The next tendency of the mind is Ekagra, when the mind is concentrated. Agra means like the tip of a mountain. So one of the mudras, if you find that Buddha sits in, so that is like Dhyana mudra, it is like this. Like a tip of a mountain, concentrated. And what is this? This is fire. Right, in the mudras, this is the fire, right? This is air, ether, earth and water. So in the Dhyana mudra, you hold it like this. Right? Ekagra. So the mind is like the tip of a mountain, very focused at one point. Sarvagra and Ekagra. So the mind has a tendency to be thinking of so many things all the time. Or the mind, when concentrated, the mind thinks of one thing at a time, and that is Ekagra. So the mind needs to be Ekagra. Ekagra means one pointed. Vyavasayatmika buddhir. Remember the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kuru nandana bahushakha hi anantascha buddhayo avyavasayinam. What does he say? It's so beautiful. He says, Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kuru nandana. He says, make your mind one pointed. Focus your intelligence at one point. Bahushaka hi anantascha. If you are doing too many things at the same time, what happens? Buddhayo avyavasayinam. You don't fix up. So we should do whatever we are doing, there are three things for success: concentration of mind, persistent effort, and grace of God. So if the concentration is there, and that's where you need to sharpen the body. I need to really sharpen the body, sharpen the mind, and really aim. Boom! I need to really aim for the soul. But if the mind is... So that is why Dhruva Maharaj, first he controlled his diet, then he controlled his breathing, prana, where you expend your energy. If you make a list of what you do, half of the things you will see that you can avoid. I had a very bad habit. As soon as I come home, I'll throw the keys somewhere. And then spend half an hour searching for the keys. Then I listed what am I doing in my day. I thought half an hour I'm searching for keys. So if I can just hang it. So I just brought a small hanger and put it and then started hanging the keys there. Then I realized, oh my God, this saved 30 minutes. So similarly, it's a simple thing. It's like a laughable thing. So many things in our life, like keeping clothes proper, arranging things proper. So then what happens? You really free up. Then there are so many things which we want to achieve in our life. Now extending this agenda forward. And you realize that do we need this, do we need this, do we need this? But what is priority? I need good health, I need good mind, I need a focused mind, I need good health. I need to really focus on Krishna. And when do we do it? Maybe in my old age I will become mature. Maybe in my old age I'll become mature. Now instead of going for that, Krishna consciousness is now. We have to take care of our health now. Because the Bhagavatam says, the Yoga Sutra says, past is gone. What you have, future, you don't know. What you have with you is the present. Act in the present. Act with knowledge in the present. Use every moment of the present. Every action you do. So as you slow down, as you calm down, so that's what Dhruva Maharaj did. You literally slow down your activity. So first you control eating, then you control your breathing, then you slow down your life. You focus on the bare necessity. Jivasya tattva jijñasa nartho yasceha karma bihe. So, Jivasya tattva jijñasa nartho yasceha karma bihi. So what should one live for? One should focus on having good health so that he can focus on Krishna. So it's a very, very beautiful advice from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So it says that one should live and live a life which is very focused, very healing. Your life should be healing, just like Dhruva Maharaj showed us. He controlled his diet, controlled his sleep, controlled his breathing, and then once he controlled his breathing, the next thing he did was concentrated his mind on Krishna. So one pointed focus on Krishna. So if you realize that your body is a very big instrument, we cannot just play around. Oh, today is festival, let us eat pakoras and as much as we want, let us do this, let us do that. No, you cannot. You have to be disciplined. You need to be aware. We need to be happy, but our happiness is not in overeating or just frolicking. No, our happiness is in more discipline. Little bit here, there is fine. But our happiness is in disciplining ourselves in eating, disciplining ourselves in our practices. Discipline, that is our increased happiness. Because Krishna says that one who controls his body and mind, sayukta same mataha, yoginam api sarvesham madgatena antaratmana, not the external yogi, the internal yogi. Krishna says, I like him. Madgatena antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yo mam. Shraddhavan means shraddha, highest level of faith. To have faith, you need to be in the mode of goodness. Mode of goodness and the pure goodness. Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam. Same yukta te tame mataha. That one needs to have Shraddhavan bhajate. Bhaj, to worship, to revere within. So our mind is like the gateway. And as long as we are in the mode of passion, we are in the mode of ignorance, the body and mind, it is blocking the energy from the soul from expressing itself. So when the mode of ignorance is gone, when the mode of passion is gone, when the mode of goodness remains, so what are the symptoms? Burijan Prabhu says, how can you recognize somebody in the mode of goodness? See what he eats. See the way he lives. See the way he lives, eats, sleeps, converses, drinks, carries out his activities. They are either in the mode of goodness, passion or ignorance. That's all the symptoms are given in the Bhagavad Gita. If we want always some spicy poda, this, that to eat, that's natural. That means we are in the mode of passion. But I want to eat something very, very light, very healthy, very focused. I don't want to take a risk. I want to sleep well. I just want to control my diet. Right, then you are in the mode of goodness. Mode of pure goodness, of course, it's like an unending level that you can reach. Goswamis of Vrindavan, once a week they ate. They practically did not eat or sleep. They were at that level of yoga. That is the real level of yoga, where one's bodily necessities are minimum. When I first heard that the Goswamis of Vrindavan, they hardly ate or slept or did anything, I was shocked. Like, how are we even going to reach that state? Of course, that is not our goal to reach that level. That's too much for our Kali Yuga body. But at least we understand the principle. One has to reduce eating, one has to reduce sleeping, one has to reduce anger, one has to reduce all these things. Because too much hunger, too much eating, then too much anger. Then too much desire, too much anger. It all follows. Hunger and anger. So one should eat the right food that heals your body. One should eat the right food that heals the mind. And in this way, if we find, so eating and then exercising. In Ayurveda it says, Ayurveda is meant to increase your ayur, your life. But not only just to increase your span of life, but ayur is to give you a long span of life so that you can meditate more deeply and finish the goal of your life, the goal of Krishna consciousness that you want to achieve. That will be achieved by following the lifestyle. So Ayurveda says, have light liquids mornings. Morning is more of meditation, focus. But if you have like a heavy breakfast in the morning, imagine rest of the day you are just a digesting machine. I was with Jayadvait Maharaj and he used to eat very light. Morning soups or juices, lunch little bit in the afternoon, evening just some tea or something like this. So I said, Maharaj, you are eating very less. He said, you don't want to be a digesting machine. So we are not just eating to digest to live. No, but we are eating for a higher purpose. You eat for hunger, not just to satisfy your palate. And if we do that, if we just focus on our palate, then in the long run, it is not going to benefit. The palate is not going to benefit us. So if we really want to achieve the openness of the heart, the soul, the cultivation of the soul, if we are able to achieve in this lifetime, by disciplining the body, by reducing the necessities, you can only reduce the necessities of the body by coming to the mode of goodness and transcending to the mode of pure goodness. You can achieve that in the bodily platform, on the mental platform also. When the mind becomes free from passion, ignorance, in the mode of goodness, the mind becomes very focused. In the mode of pure goodness, it is completely focused within. But to the degree to which you achieve, what is the mode of pure goodness? When passion and ignorance are absent. In the 3rd canto, chapter 25, it is explained. So when we focus in that way, when the mind becomes purified, then it becomes a gateway for the soul. Just like Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashito. That's when the Divya Gyan is Prakashito. You are able to hear what the Paramatma is speaking. When your heart is completely purified, when your mind is completely in the mode of pure goodness, you are actually able to listen to what the Paramatma is trying to tell you. The soul is able to receive that knowledge. Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashito Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite Avidya Vinasha Jate. Then the root cause is eliminated. Why you came to this planet, this universe? Avidya, forgetfulness. So in the Yoga Sutras, there is a very beautiful example. Patanjali says, just like there are 2 fields, okay? And in one field, there is a lot of water. In the other field, so there is a wall, small wall, which is separating the 2 fields. And if I want to irrigate my field, all I do is open up a small gateway from that field to this one. And what happens when I open the small gate? The water flows. And we get, and this field also becomes full. Then we receive that. So basically, what the soul is Satchidananda. Paramatma is unlimited. And we are not experiencing that right now, just like what we see. But when we open up these blocks within the heart, when we open up the blocks of the heart, so that is what is that called in the Bhagavatam? Vidyate Hridaya Granthis. Vidyate Hridaya Granthis. So what it means is that the heart opens up. The knots in the heart are opened up. They are released. So in our heart there is so much. What do you call it? Our heart is so. Millions of lives, billions of lives worth of karma, desires are there. Each billions and billions of desires are sitting there. Now as you discipline, as you focus with every mantra, with every word, with every disciplinary action, you are purifying, you are letting them purify, you are letting them sublimate, you are sublimating your desires. So when we sublimate our desires, we purify our desires. And ultimately, we purify our desire to such a degree that in a continuous perception of the soul, right now we don't have a continuous perception of the soul. Sometimes the mind becomes heavy, sometimes the mind is lighter, sometimes when we do kirtan, we remember Krishna, sometimes, but not all the time. So if you want to do that continuously all the time, if you want to realize that continuously all the time, so that is the mode of pure goodness. So therefore, it is our responsibility to bring to practice control. Yoga is all about control, to develop control of the body, control of our prana, control of the mind. Krishna loves that when the yogi strives by appropriate means. So in the Ayur, to give you every day how to clean yourself. Sanatana Goswami explains this in Hari Bhakti Vilas also. How to clean yourself, how to eat properly, how to live properly, how to fast properly on Ekadashi. So by doing this, the body, when it comes to the mode of goodness, the gradually the higher nature of the soul becomes manifest. And ultimately, it comes to the point when he realizes the soul completely, this connection. Brahma bhuta prasannatma na shochati na kangshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhakti labate param. So what is the real state? What is the real realization that you get. You see all living entities as equal, and you develop compassion, love, taste for the holy name. Na shochati, na kankshati, all material desires and material lamentation are gone. Then one develops attachment for the soul. But it all comes, Krishna is explaining this after you have, but for me the most important verse is the Yukta Ahara Viharasya. That ends the 6th chapter. In the middle of the 6th chapter, Krishna explains that discipline in the body and mind is critical to live a painless life so that you can cultivate an attachment to Krishna. So that is the 7th chapter, cultivating the attachment to Krishna. But before that, so therefore there is a very deep connection between the body, the mind and the soul. So there is a beautiful connection. So the more disciplined the body is, the more disciplined the mind is by all our practices. They align. They align in such a way that the energy is not wasted. They align in such a way that your body and mind are aligned in such a way that they are focused within. And when the focus is completely within, it's like when your sadhana, when your focus, when your reading of Bhagavatam, when your chanting is completely focused within, then what happens? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Jiva jago, Gaura Chandra bole. You are waking up the soul. That is when your sadhana is offenseless. That's when your sadhana is very deep within. And that's what we want to achieve. So that is the goal of yoga. Why do you discipline the body? So that I can sit steady, so that I can serve Krishna steady. I achieve good energy level so that I can serve Krishna with all enthusiasm. So even if you are practicing exercise, yoga, diet, it is all to please Krishna, because this body is not meant to just eat anything. Oh, today we are having some celebration, then we cook whatever, eat whatever. No, it is, you have to discipline. Because discipline pleases Krishna. Yoga means you are already, by following that discipline, you are already in the process of that connection. And finally, in the state of samadhi, in the state of pure intelligence, this connection occurs. So that is why last 3 months I have been doing this Chandrayana program. Some people from UK also enrolled in this, and they are finding amazing benefits, where you start with the full moon, you eat and you reduce your eating gradually till new moons, and then you increase gradually from new moon to full moon. But at the same time, we practice asana, pranayam, we practice chanting. I do chanting workshops also, and devotees have found an amazing change in their body and mind. They have really got into good shape. They are able to sit down and chant nicely. They are able to focus nicely. So it has been a very wonderful last 3-4 months for me. We have had about 25 each month, and I do this remotely. So now we are doing our teacher training in August, and it's all devotees. So we are going to have a Krishna conscious yoga training, where our body and mind, we will focus on understanding Krishna. So that was my goal, ultimately, to have a fully Krishna conscious diet, Krishna conscious lifestyle, Krishna conscious. That's what it is. We can live everything in a disciplined Krishna conscious way in the mode of goodness. And depending on our sadhana, we can achieve the mode of pure goodness. So this teacher training also, all devotees, they are those who have enrolled, they are all devotees, and they want to teach Krishna consciousness through the medium of discipline, yoga, because once you come to Krishna consciousness, you need to have that lifestyle. So you need to cultivate that lifestyle, that particular type of eating. You cannot just eat anything and everything. We have to be very, very conscious of our diet. We have to be very, very conscious of our lifestyle. We have to be very conscious of how we deal with others. So all these things are very, very important and beneficial. So it's been really amazing to speak on this ISKCON Crawley page on this Sunday. So any questions or comments does anybody have? I'll be happy to answer at this point. we already almost spoke for like an hour. So if anybody has any questions, so please feel free to type it out. I think that's the only one way, I guess, we can in the Facebook where we can interact. So please feel free. And yes, Krishna assures you, if you follow that discipline, Krishna is discipline. Krishna means discipline. Krishna means purity. Discipline is to bring about purity. So the more purity you have in your body and mind, the more the body becomes a perfect instrument to chant the holy name. The more the body and mind become a perfect vehicle for Krishna consciousness, for the soul to experience itself. Right now we are not giving the soul its own experience. We are giving the soul the experience of the body. We are giving the soul the experience of the body. So if you want to really give the soul the experience of itself, then we need to discipline. We need to release. We should exist as though the body doesn't exist. We should exist as though the body and mind doesn't exist. All that exists is the soul. So I'll end with this example. So it is said, like, if you have seen this green coconut, it has that white stuff inside, sticky. So that is the material part. The white thing. So it is very sticky. So that's like the young yogi who is not yet purified. But the same coconut, same green coconut, when it becomes mature, it becomes the copra, ready to take out oil. And if you shake it, the inner part is shaking. And then you can take out oil out of that. Right? So it is separated. So within this body, when you are spiritually mature, the mind is there, but the mind is completely separated. In the sense, the soul has shaken off its attachment or the ignorance because of which it is attached to the body and mind. So that ignorance is gone. And the soul freely expresses itself. And Bhagavatam also, such a state is referred, where it says that the Agni of Bhakti, Agni of Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, discipline, is so powerful that it can burn the body and mind to such a degree that you exist, although you exist as though the body and mind doesn't exist. Only the soul exists. And that was the great Acharya that we experienced. They are on the platform of the soul. All right. How can we eat less and go to sleep at night? So that's a good question by Radha Krishna Pratibhaji. So it's how can we eat less? So basically it's a willingness. So that is why I did this Chandrayana, this tailored program. So we should understand, first of all, what we should eat. So we should identify foods which are in the mode of goodness. So we should identify foods which are in the mode of goodness, which are in the mode of pure goodness. And as we identify the right foods to eat, we should eat them at the right time. Eating foods at the right time. So according to Ayurveda, if you follow, then night eating is very detrimental, because you either sleep or you digest. You cannot digest and sleep. So night, the heavier you eat, at least you should eat 2.5 hours before you sleep, so that you have enough time for the food to go out of the stomach bag into the intestine. But if it is still in the stomach bag, then your sleep will be like, body has to divide the energy between the two, then your quality of sleep is less than 50%. So if you want to really change that, if you want to really have quality sleep, so then we eat before, number one. Second, we eat less. And when we do like that, we discipline ourselves and our diet becomes very clear. Okay? All right. So any other questions, comments? Thank you, Sunita ji, for the nice comment, and we are really grateful all of you gave this opportunity to speak, and I hope it has been beneficial for all of you. And any questions, comments, please feel free to chat with me anytime. How can we die happy? Okay. How can we die happy? So the point is that if you experience the soul, like Parikshit Maharaj was experiencing the soul. Therefore, when the snake bit him, it didn't matter. when the snake bit him, it did not matter. He was already on the state of the soul. Means the soul was already, he had reached, connected with the soul. So when you connect with the soul, you are so happy. For example, I am very happy today, okay? I am very happy. And I have some friend and I have some gifts with me. I'm like, take this gift, take this. I'm happy to give. I don't mind losing it because I'm so happy. Like when the king becomes very happy, he wants to give something. He's like, you really are in a happy mood. So your happiness, that what you experience is far higher than all the material things that you have. So when you experience the soul, you realize this is so high that you don't need any of the lower things. Now we are attached to all the lower things. Why? Because we are not experiencing the level of the soul. When you gradually begins to experience the level of the soul, as you grow higher, one man went to Sanatana Goswami and he said, I heard, Sanatana Goswami ji, that you have a gem touching which anything that comes in contact with that becomes gold. Where is it? He said, it's in the dustbin. Dustbin? You have the Chintamani stone in the dustbin? He said, yeah. Then you must be having something far more valuable. What is that? What is that far more valuable? That far more valuable is the deep. When you chant, you experience Krishna. You experience the soul with every word. In the beginning, when we come to Krishna consciousness, we are moment we experience that in the beginning, but then we slow down. But then we have to go through the whole process of discipline and then come to the point where, boom, we are able to experience that sweetness of Krishna every moment. So when you experience the sweetness of Krishna, when you experience self-realization, then you can die happy. Then living or dying doesn't matter. When a sadhu was giving blessings to somebody, he blessed one little boy and sadhu, he said, even if you live or die, it doesn't matter to you. Why? Why it doesn't matter even if you live or die? It doesn't matter if you live or die because a yogi, as long as he is living, he is always happy because he is in the platform of the soul. Even when he dies, he is already on the platform of the soul. So there is no question of death. He is just leaving this body here. That's all. It's like, after this maybe class, then I change my clothes. I just take it out. I'm done. I don't want to put this whole day, right? I just take it out. So the yogi, once he is self-realized, for him this body is like, okay. Now we are very attached to the body, just like the coconut example I gave you. It's like, this is me, I want this. But then you experience the soul, it's like, what is this? Okay, it has to go. I want to go to Vaikuntha. I want to be with Krishna. I want to play with Krishna. You are eager to leave this and go there. The way you die is what is the ending point of the Bhagavad Gita. The way you live and the way you die. Of course, the way you live is as though you are preparing for the next life. And when you die, you are already prepared and you are gone there. So then you can really live and die happily. Thank you, Tejal, for your acknowledgement. Thank you so much for attending the class, and thank you Radhakrishna Pratibhaji for the beautiful question. So thank you all so much. Okay, there's one more question that just popped up. Prabhuji, you said if you observe someone to see whether they are in mode of goodness, so then look at what they eat. But could it be the same eats in the mode of goodness, but in the mind they are? So if so, how to align them? So the body-mind is a connection. What you eat also influences what you think. For example, if you are having too much heat in the body, so what do? You take something cooling. So that influences the cooling. His mind might be something, but if he continuously fixes to proper eating, that also influences the mind. Remember, you are what you eat. So if you control your diet, what happens? So when I control my diet, when I control my eating and I eat proper, for example, it is said I'll give you a gross, like kind of an example. If a student behaves badly with the teacher in the Gurukul era, behaves badly, that from that day he has to fast. Why? Because by fasting we experience little pain and we reflect within. We reflect within when fasting, and then like, oh, why did I do that? I shouldn't. So you have to experience that change of nature. You have to experience that change of mind. So they do fasting. So similarly, I know my mind is like, when I look at my kid, it's like they are just expressing. I'm like, we are scaring the kids. We try to scare them. We try to tell them, don't do this, don't do that. He's breaking one glass every day. I'm like, what is this? I told my wife, just buy plastic. We like glass. He's throwing it every day. I'm like, what do you do? So it is the nature of the mind. It's an automatic thing. It's like, it happens. It's a kid. So similarly, our mind develops a certain nature. Sometimes it's very difficult to overcome. So you need to be disciplined to overcome that. So how do you overcome that? First discipline is diet. 60% of the discipline is diet. When the diet is disciplined, gradually you can perform other activities. But if the diet itself is very passionate, then whatever state of passion you already are, it aggravates it. So if you are disciplined and controlled, add diet and then you control, then it acts wonderfully. I hope that answers the question, right? So diet is only the beginning. Along with the diet, I know I have a weak mind and I continue with my spiritual practices, but diet is important. So diet is one half of it. The other half is the other practices. So we have to control diet anyway, even for our health, physical health or mental health. And our mind, of course, there is always the tendency. Until you reach Prema Bhakti, we always have a tendency. Therefore, we have to be very disciplined. That's the point. We need to be always aware and disciplined and focused. Alright, Mataji, I hope I answered the question there. So Param Nitai Prabhu's question, Hare Krishna, chanting late after sufficient sleep versus chanting in spite of less sleep, which one is better? I would say with sufficient sleep in the long run. Because if you skip sleep over a long period of time, lack of sleep can cause slowness of the brain functions. And you sleep according to your activity. If we controlled eating, if you eat heavy, then you have to sleep more. Prabhupada says, if you eat more, you have to sleep more. So if you control your eating, that's why I gave the example of Dhruva Maharaj. So if you control the eating, then you are able to control the sleeping also. So eating and sleeping both. So both go hand in hand, eating and sleeping. So that is very, very important. So if you control the diet, of course, it helps in many different ways, and it controls your sleep also. So control the diet and sleep. And one of the things is, we are very disciplined. We want to sleep early. If you give up sleep, then it affects all the other activities also. So I would say, sleep well, but don't make it a habit to sleep late. Sleep early, control your eating, wake up early, make it a overall lifestyle habit. In the long run, attempt to sleep well, wake up well, and you will see a perfect change in your life. Okay? Thank you, Param Nitai ji. Thank you, Sunita ji. And yeah, okay. So thank you all so much for all your wonderful questions. And it's been a pleasure. And thanks to Nikhil and all the devotees, Shyam Govind, I guess, and all of you at ISKCON Crawley. Thank you for inviting me once again. I'm very grateful for this opportunity, and hope to interact again some other time. Thank you once again. Hare Krishna.